from my wine school, where it is wine your way. And everyone say hello to my sister, Karen, also
Hi.
the resident chef for my wine school. And if you're wondering how to say hello to Karen, how to say hello to everyone on the chat roll, then it's real easy to get involved. All you do, if you're watching this live, off to the right, you'll see chat with MWS. Go ahead and type anything under audience. It'll take you to this screen. You can either log in, if you have a login, or sign up today. And if you sign up with Ustream, you just fill in these 5 fields, and boom, you are a part of the conversation. So I see Emily and Brian and Douglas and Jenny. Hello, everyone. It's good to see everyone tonight. And Kay and my mom, of course, my 2 moms. Tonight we're here at Winecast number 32. This is our Wine Explorer. So we're doing 1 Winecast a week, but soon we will be ramping it back up to 3 Winecasts a week with the Wine Newbie, Wine Explorer, and Wine Guru. So if you like what you see, tell your friends, invite them over for a glass of wine, and tell them you're going to give them some free wine classes. But you don't have to do a thing. You just have to open your wine and drink it with them. So tonight for Winecast number 32, we are going to be doing Cool Climate Grape Varietals. So what does that mean? We're going to get into it. And we're going to be using the wine Pacific Rim Riesling from 2010, and this is from Washington State. Now, you can really use any wine you want. You can use any Riesling or any white wine, but just grab a bottle, get it open, and learn something with us here tonight. So, Karen, I want to know, if you were to classify yourself as a grape that thrives in a warm or a cool climate, which one would you be? And I want to know what everyone else thinks out there, too. Would you be a cool climate grape or a warm climate grape? Karen?
I don't know. I think I would be a warm climate grape because I hate the cold weather.
That would be a good reason, yes.
But I think I prefer the final outcome of cool weather grapes. So maybe I would sacrifice, be in Wisconsin. Be a cool weather grape.
So Karen is willing to sacrifice her comfort in order to have a better result. Now that is a true wine lover.
Yeah.
How about anyone else out there? Are they cool or warm weather grapes? I've been distracting her, and now she's like, wait, hold on a second.
No, Emily's like Grenache. She loves the warm weather and the spice.
Oh, spicy girl. And I see some other people have different wines. I see Kung Fu Riesling, which is a great one by Charles Winery, or what is it called? Fill me in again. It's Charles something. Charles Smith. There it is. Charles Smith. Thanks. And Brian chimed in right away with that. So yeah, that's another great Riesling. I don't know. I just got back from Florida and living in Wisconsin. I'd have to say after that, I'm a warm weather grape, after leaving Wisconsin. Although Wisconsin has not been that bad this winter.
Yeah.
It has been mild, which I will take. But you know what? I'm not just trying to rub in that I was in Florida with all of you guys. What I'm trying, it actually has a point. The idea of Wisconsin and Florida and producing grapes. And let's take a look at this map here. This is, if you don't know, then you're in trouble. But this is the United States, okay? But what's great about this map is that it actually comes from Enchanted Learning, which I found online. But I was looking for a map that included latitude lines. And that's really important for winemaking and understanding cool and warm climates, because winemaking in the world happens to take place between the latitude lines of 30 to 50 degrees north and south latitude lines. So if you look at this map, you can see where our our 30 and 50 degrees north latitude lines are. They're right under Canada. That's the 50 degree north latitude line, and 30 degrees is right over to the right under that Atlantic Ocean. So what you can see here is that the United States actually is, in theory, perfect for growing grapes. It's right between that 30 to 50 degree north latitude line. Now don't worry. There are exceptions to this. In fact, Canada is above the 50 degree north latitude line, but it's making some great ice wine, which Emily wrote a fantastic article on ice wine, and it's on our homepage. So check that out. It's under MWS Decants. Fantastic additional information about cool weather wines being made out there. So, but back to this map here. Now, if you look at Wisconsin, and if you don't know where Wisconsin, by the way, Wisconsin is not a city in Minnesota, okay? But if you don't know where Wisconsin is, I'm not even going to give you the arrow. You've got to go look at a map and find it yourself. But Wisconsin and Florida, I was mentioning before, back to business, right? So we've got wine being produced in all 50 states, and it makes sense that it's being produced in all 50 states. And yet places like Wisconsin and Florida are not making what we call high quality grapes for wines, meaning we're not making any Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, all those grapes that you recognize on the label. We have to do special things, make things like hybrids in order to be able to make grapes. Now, why is that? Well, if you look at the map here, it's easy to see why Florida might not be able to make high quality grapes, and that's because it's south of the 30 degrees north latitude line. It's just too warm. But now you look at Wisconsin, and we are right smack dab, in that zone of making grapes, and yet we cannot make these high quality grapes. In fact, we're at the same latitude as the famous Rhone Valley in France, which makes world-class wine. So what's interesting about that is it's good to know that it's not just about latitude. You start with your latitude lines and understanding the climate for growing grapes, so 30 to 50 degrees, but then within those latitude lines, there are exceptions, like we said, in Canada and Germany and some places in South America. But then within those areas of 30 to 50 degrees north and south latitude, you're even going to find places that cannot make good wine. So why is that? Well, there are other things going on, like bodies of water and altitude, and we'll get a little bit more into that in just a minute. But you know what? It's a starting point to know the latitude. But then after that climate is really important, and the grapes know the difference. They're no dummies. And if you try and force a grape to be grown in a climate that's not suited for it, it's going to show you in the end that it was not suited for that region, and it's going to make not such a great wine. And grapes are like people, and if you try and force them to live in a habitat that doesn't make them happy, they're going to be sourpusses, right? And when Karen's cold, she's not a happy person, and it's just like Karen having to live in Wisconsin. Karen doesn't like to live in Wisconsin. Well, she doesn't like the cold weather. She likes Wisconsin, but you don't like the cold weather. And it's the same thing for a grape like Riesling, which should be in a cool weather zone, and yet if you grow it in a warm weather zone like California, you're going to find that it's not going to do quite as well as it could in some cooler weather zones. So what we're going to do today is talk about these cool climate grapes. And did anyone else out there consider themselves a cool climate grape? I think I saw...
Emily said that Kay should be a Riesling because she's so sweet.
That is true. Kay is sweet. So yeah, in fact, Kay, my favorite cool weather grape is Riesling. And what we're going to be looking at today is a great Riesling producer from... it's domestic, and it's from Washington, and it's called Pacific Rim. There, we got a good close-up of it there. And this one, like I said, is from Washington, and it's a Riesling specifically within the Columbia Valley in Washington. Now let's get back to our map real quick and find where Washington is. Okay, I'm going to help you out here if you don't know where Washington is. There it is. Now this is a great example about how life is not fair. If you look at where Washington is and where Wisconsin is, Washington is a lot further north than Wisconsin, and yet they're making world-class Rieslings. Okay, that is an example of life not being fair. What can we do about it? Not much. But this wine, to give you an example of how good the Rieslings are coming out of Washington, this Riesling was voted #1 Best Buy by wine enthusiasts. So they rated 100 wines as Best Buy, and this was the #1 buy. This is about an $8, $9 bottle of wine. So Washington's making some pretty great value wines and pretty great wines altogether. But then this begs the question, why is Wisconsin unable to make these wines and Washington is? Well, here we go. We look at Washington, and what's really close to Washington that's not very close to us? An ocean. That proximity to the ocean is going to help moderate extreme temperatures, which is where we run into problems with the really cold winters. And then also in Washington, in the eastern part of Washington, you get a desert-like conditions, which when you think desert, you think hot. It's not necessarily hot. It's just lots of sunlight and dry. And so they're able to pull off these great wines at a relatively far north latitude line. So like I said before, there are other cool climate grapes. This is one of my favorite Rieslings because it's a great example of how well it will do in a cool climate versus a warm climate. But there are others. So that brings us to our first wine IQ. And these are interactive questions meant to get you being a part of the conversation. And this one says, which of the following is not considered a cool climate grape varietal? We have A, Riesling, B, Syrah, C, Pinot Noir, or D, Chardonnay. Now, while you're thinking about that, let me give you some clues here. A cool climate grape is grown in cool climates. Let's say that doesn't help very much. Okay, but if you think about France, for instance, some of our classic cool weather climates are Burgundy, Champagne, and Germany. So if you know what grapes come from there, think about what's being grown there, and that might help you out. But there's other things that make a cool climate grape do well in a cool climate grape. So yes, we know that some grapes are grown in cool climates, but why are they grown there and not in the warm climates? Well, there's a lot of reasons why, but let me just give you a couple ideas of what makes a grape successful in a region. One is perhaps when the grape is going to bud or flower. You know, if it's going to bud or flower early in the season in a cool climate, it has risk of frost damaging that new fruit or the potential of the new fruit. So that's one thing that might make a difference. Also, the maturation rate of a certain grape varietal. Now, all these grape varietals have different characteristics that are different, which makes them different. And so Riesling, for instance, does better when it can mature over a long period of time, mature slowly over a long period of time. That way it's able to develop a lot of flavor along with the sugars. Another thing is rootstock and the hardiness of the roots. So, for instance, Riesling has great strength in its roots, and so in the vine itself, so it can withstand a little bit more cooler temps. And then when you're looking at things like red wines, thickness of skins is going to make a big difference. That might help you answer this question. And then, of course, for us consumers, what's really important, what we see at the end of the day, is what types of aromas and flavors are these grapes going to have a predisposition for. So we're going to get into that when we try these wines. But for instance, Riesling, when in a cooler climate, might have more complexity than in a warm climate. So, Karen, are people coming in with the right answer here?
Everyone has said B for Syrah.
B for Syrah. So good, perfect. Now, what you want to, what you'd see if you didn't know that is that A, Riesling was a giveaway because this whole Winecast is about Riesling, so I'd hope you'd get that one. But B, Syrah. This is the great example of relatively thick skins. Syrah has a thick skin. And as such, it needs more sunlight and warmth, and it's not going to do well in a cool climate. It's going to be mean and green if you tried to grow it in places like Germany. Although, I will say some people are starting to do crazy things like that with global warming. So we're not going to get into that. But then Pinot Noir, here we go. This is a cool weather grape. It has thin skins. We have less to ripen. And also it's a grape known for nuance. And so in a warm climate, you lose that fruit, earth, spice complexity, and you get almost all fruit. So Pinot Noir tends to do better in cool climates. And Chardonnay is a really interesting grape. It does well in cool climates like Chablis and in Burgundy, but it also can do really well in warm climates as well. It's going to adapt. If it's in a cool climate, it's going to be more citrus, whereas if it's in a warm climate, we might see more tropical flavors. So let's get into tasting this. I saw this hippie boy. I love B for bird. Nice. I like it. Getting into tonight's theme. Any other questions so far, Karen? No, we're good? Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not skipping ahead of any important topics here. Okay. So, well, you know what the important topic is? The important topic is tasting. So let's actually taste this Riesling and see what we can learn in the glass, because that's where I like to learn best. You know, screw the Winecast and the books. This is where it's at. Okay. So when we first approach the wine, we often like to take a look at the appearance. And sometimes we just skip over this because it doesn't tell us much. But if we're talking about cool climate and warm climate grapes, let me just give you a little insight. Cool climate grapes generally, not always, but generally will have a paler color. So let's take a look at this color. Pretty pale, right? A nice pale lemon color. And especially that holds true for reds. Now there are exceptions like Dornfelder's a red that tends to have a good amount of color, but overall, Dornfelder's a cool climate grape. Sorry. I tend to like go on without finishing some ideas sometimes because I'm just so excited about what I'm about to say next. Okay, so on reds, cooler climates, you're probably going to see a lighter color. So in fact, Pinot Noir is a great example of that. Cool weather grape, usually on the lighter side with the thinner skins. Now let's go on to the next part of our tasting experience, and that's, of course, smelling the wine. So go ahead and smell it, and I want to know what you smell. You can do anything simple like fruit, earth, or spice, or you can get as specific as you want. I will say that what we would expect on a cool climate grape like Riesling would be to get more citrus and more cool weather fruit. And then also some earthy tones. That's really common, I think mainly because the fruit is more subtle, and so more of the earthy tones can come through. And if you're looking at like a warm weather climate wine, you're going to see more of richer fruits like peaches and tropical fruit. And for the reds, you're going to see more of this black fruit and blue fruit rather than, say, a red fruit in cool climate. Karen, what has anyone come in with any ideas on what they're smelling?
Douglas just came in with some lemon, honeydew, celery. He said for some reason I get a celery a lot.
Great. So Douglas, perfect. So lemon, we're definitely getting some of that cool weather fruit, the citrus notes. Honeydew, this, like I said, this is in Washington, so we might see some riper fruits because it has so much sunlight. So you're going to get some of that cool weather citrus, but you might start to see a little bit of, I get a little peach on this too, which is a little bit more of a warmer fruit. But celery, Douglas, that's another great point that I didn't make, is that cool weather wines, cool climate wines are going to tend to have more of this vegetal note. And sometimes it's very appealing, and sometimes it's not so appealing, depending on the wine. But celery, that's lemon, honeydew, celery, sounds like kind of like a fun salad, right? Nice. Douglas, you're on it. We want to know how that salad is, okay? Anyone else, Kim?
Yeah, Brian says lychee.
Lychee?
And Emily said lemon, honey, white flower.
Perfect. So again, we're seeing a lot of that citrus. Brian's getting a little bit of that tropical fruit. So again, that sunshine that we get in Washington is coming through on that. And then white flower. Perfect, Emily. On the website, they talk about jasmine a lot on this wine. And it's interesting. I didn't really smell it until that power of suggestion. And then I got a lot of that jasmine. I also on this one tend to get, like I said, peach, a little apricot, but then also some yellow flowers too. It's a little bit of a sweeter jasmine, if you will. So a little bit of a riper jasmine. And Emily's getting a little bit of minerality too. Yeah, I get this chalky undertone. It's not this dirty note that you might get in, say, a place like Germany, but I get this like chalkiness that's real pretty and goes quite nicely with lemon, honeydew, and celery. So Douglas, just sprinkle a little chalk on that salad of yours. I think it'll taste great. So good. So that is what we're getting. We're getting a little bit of this cool climate on the nose. Now let's go ahead and take a sip of it too, and see what you get on the palate. Now, if you're talking about cool climate wines and what you're gonna smell, or I'm sorry, what you're gonna taste, again, you're gonna tend to see more of those cool weather fruits and that earthiness, but you're also gonna get a little bit more acid and lower alcohol. And if you have high acid and low alcohol, what does that translate to? It translates to what is perceived as a lighter body. So a warmer climate wine, a wine from a warmer climate, will tend to have those riper fruits and black and blue fruits, but then also higher alcohol and lower acid. Okay, higher alcohol and lower acid, what does that translate to in terms of perception? Fuller body. So those are some things that I want you to think about as you try this wine. There's acid, body, alcohol, and tell me what you get in flavors as well. Anyone coming in on that one?
Not yet on the palate.
Okay, you guys are all busy drinking.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's, and this is interesting. This is where I tend to see a split in I find that Riesling is quite polarizing in terms of people's taste for it. People either love it or they really bash it. And I think this is my theory, okay? What I think happens is there are some really great Rieslings out there. And then there are some okay Rieslings. And Rieslings that are grown maybe in a warmer climate are not not grown where they should be, let's say. They're going to tend to have the sweetness on it and fruit, but not much else. It's a simple sweet wine. And so people who like sweet wines will like it, but people who don't like sweet wines won't like them. However, if you look at Rieslings that come from cool climates, where they're supposed to be grown, then what you get is complexity. you get lots of flavor and complexity because that Riesling has had a long season to develop all these complex aromas and flavors that are translated into the wine. And not only that, but you have extremely high acid. And so that sweetness is still there, but it's balanced with the wine. And this is a great example. This is on the sweeter side. This is what we'd call off dry. And yet what I want you to think about is the finish. Does the finish seem sweet? And so what I think would happen if people would try good examples of Riesling, it wouldn't be so polarizing. Because people who like sweet wine would like it because it has some sweetness in it. But people who don't necessarily like sweet wine might be surprised that they like it because it's got complexity and it's got balance. So, did I stall enough to get some people? Okay, good.
Okay, so Brian said he's got both the Pacific Rim and the Kung Fu Girl.
Okay.
And his
nice, Brian.
I said, is he having a party already?
Right.
Or what?
Why aren't we invited?
So he said that the Pacific Rim, his observations are Pacific Rim is rounder, softer than the Kung Fu Girl.
Okay.
And the Kung Fu Girl has a bit more of effervescence to it.
Okay. And it's interesting because we should note that Kung Fu Girl and Pacific Rim both come from Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then Emily also has the Kung Fu Girl, and she says it has great acidity, balance with sugar and fruit. She's loving it.
Okay.
And then the Economist, I'm not sure which one he has, but he said definitely acidic, almost fizzy.
Okay, great point. So the acid you guys are all touching on. We're growing this wine in Washington. I wish we were, right? But they're growing the grapes in Washington, and so they're going to have some good acid because you saw how far north it is. And as a result, you'll taste it. It'll. Someone said fizzy, acidic, prickly. Those are all great descriptors of a wine that is extremely high in acid and low in pH. This wine, the one that I have, I know is like a 3.1, which is very low for wine production. Okay, that is extremely low pH, which means really high acid as well. Okay, so and you feel that in the mouth. Now that brings me to a great point about balance. So this wine and the Kung Fu Girl, if I remember correctly, have a little bit of a residual sugar in it. This one has about 3 grams, which is actually quite low for a Riesling. Okay, so but with that high acid, that finish is so clean. So you get that sweetness on the palate, but then it finishes extremely clean. Mm-hmm. And if you did not have that residual sugar on it, this wine would seem mean. I mean, you think this is acidic. Without that sugar, it would not be balanced. Mm-hmm. So that is why you see that sugar remaining is not to make it sweet, but more to make a balanced wine. And what's great about Pacific Rim is on the back, if you've got it, they actually have a chart. Let me see if I can get that. Here's a chart, and you can see the arrow there, and it shows where on the spectrum of sweetness it is. So they talk about dry, medium, sweet, and sweet, which is helpful for Riesling because we don't know necessarily what its sweetness level is. Now, I will say a good way to check sweetness level on your Rieslings is look for, let's see if I can get it, there we go, the alcohol. And this one's 11.5. That's on the low side for a wine. So we would anticipate, if the wine has a lower alcohol, we'd anticipate maybe a little bit of residual sugar. So, any other comments, Karen, over there, or thoughts?
Well, Emily says the Kung Fu Girl is off dry, but finishes really clean as well.
And that's because Washington can do it. They've got that high acid, and so they can have this off dry, balanced note to it and have a really clean finish that's really desirable, even if you don't like sweet wines. The analogy I always make is lemonade. You have lemon juice. It's really sour. You add a little bit of sugar to it. It doesn't make it sweet. It just balances out a bit more. And the acid on some of these Washington and German Rieslings is that high that you kind of need a little bit of a residual sugar. And by the way, it's not adding sugar in for wines. It's just keeping the original grape juice in the wine. So it makes a difference.
One more comment. Douglas had mentioned earlier that with Rieslings, especially, it's critical not to serve it too warm or too cold.
Good. Yeah. So Douglas made a great point. Not too warm or too cold. Well, depends on if you like it or not. If you don't like it, then too cold would be a good thing, right? And the reason why Douglas is saying not too cold is because you're going to lose what you paid for. You lose aromas, and Riesling is an aromatic grape, and so you want to make sure you're getting all that you paid for. And too warm, yeah, that acid's really high, so it'll be a little unpleasant. That's why we chill our whites, because they're higher in acid and they taste better chill. So, great comment, Douglas. Mm-hmm. Any other comments out there?
Someone just mentioning that the Pacific Rim has organic grapes.
Organic, perfect. Thank you. Great point. So Pacific Rim has organic grapes. It's not going to say organic wine, and that's probably because they add in some sulfites, probably really low amounts of sulfites. In fact, if you put organic grapes on the label, that automatically brings your level of sulfites down by law. So, but with this sweetness factor on it, you almost need a little bit of preservative to keep the wine stable. But it's probably really low if they're doing organic grapes. Great who is that from? Vinconomist. Great point. Thanks so much. Okay, well, great. You guys hit upon the acid, the balance, the complexity. I want to hear also about food pairings. What did you guys think? Because this is a wine. Riesling is a wine that just is meant to go with food. If you've got any comments about what you'd pair with this, we'd love to hear it. And Karen, I'm putting you on the spot. What would you pair with this?
Oh God, I think it could go great with lots of different stuff. Spicy food, Thai, Mexican, also heavier foods because of the real nice acidity. You know, some even French food or something that's got a bit more cream and butter to it.
Yep, definitely. That high acid's going to cut right through it. And this has enough intensity of flavor, like you said, that it can really stand up to some more intensely flavored dishes. So perfect. Let's see. Anything else, guys? Oh, I see chicken shrimp stir fry. Nice. I'm coming over. San Francisco. I'm coming over to San Francisco. How about that? So I think that if anyone's got any more comments, I want to know what you guys think about the wine. Obviously, I always want to know what you think about the wine. So tell me what you do with this wine. Karen, how about you? What would you do with this wine?
Stock it.
Yeah, at $8.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to agree with you on that one. I would definitely stock it. It's easy. You know, I hate going with the flow with in terms of doing what was the #1 best buy for wine enthusiasts. It's like I like to go against it just because, which is not the right thing to do, but they're right. This is a great buy. This is a well-balanced, easy to drink wine, and because of that, I'm gonna have to go with them too. So anyone else have any comments on their wines?
Not yet.
Okay, I see stock it.
Oh wait,
I see stock it from Nancy.
Oh, there you go.
And my mom loves it. My two moms, Mom and Kay, love the Rieslings. Definitely, it's you know, and Rieslings are one of the fastest growing grape varietals in terms of sales in the U.S. Okay, I'm gonna stop giving you more information because we're running out of time here. Are there any more comments before we sign off or questions?
No, just lots of stock it. Lots
All
of
right.
like it.
Good stuff. Well, stock it. Well, we'll have to do a warm weather climate grape in the future. But tonight was all about the cool climate, and we're gonna sign off for tonight. But if you liked what you saw, please tell your friends, invite them over, share Brian, share those 2 bottles of wine with someone. And next Wednesday, we're going to be doing marketing in the wine world. So, you know, who needs an MBA when you can attend a class in your PJs for free with wine and actually learn something? Screw the MBAs, just come to our class. So make sure you tell your friends about that one too, okay? Well, that's all the time we have for. So thanks for joining us. I'm Jessica Bell from My Wine School. Where does wine your way?